Sanity, such a fragile thing. Most cling to it like a lifeline, desperate to stay afloat in a world that constantly drags them under. But sanity, it's overrated. The real trick is not to hold on too tightly. Let the chaos swirl around you. Let the madness nip at your heels, but never fully give in. The ones who go insane are the ones who try too hard to stay normal, who try to fit into boxes built by people who were never sane to begin with. The key? Dance with the madness, but never let it lead. See? The world will push you, prod you, try to bend your mind to its will. It'll throw you into situations that make no sense, demand things from you that contradict everything you thought you knew. And in that pressure, in that relentless pounding on the walls of your mind, most people crack. But not you. Not if you understand the game. Insanity comes from trying to make sense of a senseless world, from trying to rationalize the irrational. The first step to not going insane: accept that chaos is the natural state. Embrace the absurdity. Stop searching for meaning in every corner, because meaning, it's a luxury for the weak. Those who stay sane are the ones who know how to build walls in their minds, fortresses that keep the madness at bay. But those walls, they have doors, secret passages that allow the darkness to flow in, just enough to keep things interesting. Too much control, too much order, and the pressure will break you. But a little madness, that keeps you sharp, keeps you alive. The world wants to push you to the edge, to make you feel like you're one step away from the abyss. And maybe you are. But the difference between the sane and the insane, one steps back, the other steps forward, smiling. The trick to not going insane is to stop fighting the chaos. Stop trying to control every piece of the puzzle. The pieces will never fit the way you want them to, so stop trying to force it. Let the pieces fall where they may. Let the world show its twisted hand, and just watch. Observe. Don't react. Don't let it pull you under. Those who react too quickly, those who need control, they drown. But you learn to float. Float in the chaos, in the uncertainty. And that's when the power shifts. That's when the world loses its grip on you. People go insane because they care too much about how things should be, how things ought to make sense. But the harsh reality is that nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is owed. The universe doesn't operate on rules that benefit you. The moment you accept that, you're free. The moment you stop needing things to go your way, stop needing the comfort of certainty, that's when your mind becomes unbreakable. Madness comes from expectation, from clinging to outcomes. Sanity? That's born in letting go, in walking through the fire, and realizing you're still standing. You don't stay sane by building walls of logic around your mind, by sheltering yourself from the storm. No. You stay sane by stepping into the storm, by letting the wind and the rain tear at you without losing your footing. The world will always test you, always try to pull you into its madness. But as long as you remember that the storm is just that, a storm, it can't touch you. The storm doesn't define you. The chaos doesn't own you. You exist beyond it, above it, untouchable. The greatest insanity is believing you can control everything. That's what breaks people. They try to hold on to everything, to manage every piece of their lives. And when it all inevitably slips through their fingers, they snap. Control is an illusion. The real sanity comes when you realize that, when you understand that life is a constant state of flux, of change, of disorder, and you stop trying to fight it. Sanity is not found in control. It's found in adaptation, in flowing with the current, without being swept away. So how do you not go insane? You stop playing by their rules. You stop needing life to be clean, to make sense. You embrace the mess, the chaos, the absurdity, and you learn to thrive in it. When you stop trying to force the world into a shape that fits your mind, that's when your mind becomes stronger than the world. That's when you walk through the madness and come out the other side, unchanged, unscathed, and still very much in control. If you can't understand why someone is doing something, don't waste your time trying to decipher their thoughts. That's where most people get lost, trying to read intentions, motivations, emotions, as if you could ever truly know the mind of another. It's a game of shadows, of half-truths and lies. And if you're foolish enough to play it, you'll lose yourself in the process. Instead, look at the consequences. Forget the words, the justifications, the pretty lies they tell to keep you distracted. Focus on what their actions bring to life. What comes from their choices. That's where you'll find their true motivations. People act with intent, whether they admit it or not. The consequences of their actions are the purest reflection of their desires. Even when they claim otherwise, even when they dress it up in noble intentions, the outcome speaks the real language. It doesn't matter what someone says. They could spin a story so tight it feels like the truth. But look at what happens. What destruction do they leave in their wake? What power do they gain? What peace do they disturb? The consequences are the map. And from that map, you trace back their path. You'll see where it began, where it's going, and what they're truly after. Forget the surface. Dive into the ripples that follow in their footsteps. If someone claims to be a savior, but leaves chaos behind, you don't need to question what they are. They've already told you through their actions. If they preach harmony, but all they breed is division, their motivations are clear. Consequences are the only language that never lies, never twists. It's in the aftermath that people reveal who they really are and what they truly want. And once you grasp that, once you learn to read people through the consequences of their actions rather than their words, you become untouchable. You stop getting dragged into the mental labyrinth they set up to confuse you, to make you doubt yourself. You see the world as it is, stripped of illusion. Their motivations are no longer a mystery, no longer a riddle to solve. It's all laid bare in the chaos or order they create. And that is where you find the clarity to stay above the madness, the trick to staying sane. It's all connected. Don't let their words trap you. Don't get lost in the game of trying to understand what's inside someone's head. Look at the consequences. Trace the pattern, and you'll see exactly what drives them. And when you can do that, the confusion slips away. You're no longer at the mercy of their deception. You see clearly, you act decisively, and you remain in control. The personal ego is a beast, full of insecurities, fears, and endless hungers. It drives people to act in self-interest, to protect themselves from perceived threats, to constantly seek validation. But as twisted as the personal ego may be, the collective ego, that's a different monster altogether. It thrives on groupthink, on shared delusions, on a scale that magnifies every flaw, every dysfunction, until it becomes something far more dangerous than any single person could ever create. The collective ego feeds on conformity, demanding loyalty to the tribe at all costs, even if that loyalty means plunging headfirst into madness. Look around and you'll see it everywhere. Nations, corporations, religious institutions, social groups, each one infected by the collective ego. It's no longer about individual desires or fears. It becomes about the survival of the group identity, about enforcing the shared beliefs that hold the tribe together. And when the ego of the many becomes threatened, the insanity begins. Logic disappears. Reason is discarded. The group will twist reality itself to justify its actions, to maintain its fragile sense of self. What you're left with is a collective capable of unspeakable acts, driven by a shared delusion that they are righteous, that their madness is justified. The collective ego doesn't care about right or wrong. It cares about survival, about dominance, about power. It will consume anything and anyone in its path, dragging individuals into the chaos, demanding their complete surrender to the collective will. And once you're in, it's nearly impossible to escape. The collective feeds on fear. Fear of being cast out, fear of being different, fear of standing alone. And in that fear, people surrender their individual sanity, choosing instead to dissolve into the madness of the crowd. They follow, they obey, they participate in the collective delusion, even as it leads them off a cliff. Absolute insanity is born when the collective ego reaches a tipping point, where reason can no longer break through. When the group becomes so consumed by its need to protect its identity, it becomes capable of anything. Genocide, war, oppression, destruction, all born from the collective ego's relentless pursuit of its own survival. And the individuals within, they lose themselves, becoming mere instruments of the collective will, acting without thought, without reflection, driven by a shared belief that they are doing what must be done. The personal ego is dangerous enough, but the collective ego is the true source of the world's greatest horrors. It feeds on division, on us versus them thinking. It thrives on conflict and fear, always looking for an enemy to destroy, a threat to neutralize. And in that constant search for threats, the collective ego will tear the world apart, piece by piece, until there is nothing left to destroy. The purpose of life, what a twisted, elusive thing. People spend their whole existence chasing meaning, hoping to find a reason that makes the pain worthwhile. They pray, they sacrifice, they cling to fleeting moments of joy, as if they can drown out the ever-present suffering with distractions and illusions. But suffering, it's always there, lurking behind the curtains of their superficial happiness. The real purpose, the only purpose worth pursuing, is finding something so meaningful, so deeply rooted in your core, that the suffering fades into irrelevance. A mode of being that transcends the pain, not by escaping it, but by rendering it insignificant. Life is suffering, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you a lie. Pain, loss, fear, it's all baked into the very fabric of existence. The mistake people make is believing that they can outrun it, that somehow they'll stumble upon a life free from anguish. But that life doesn't exist. What does exist, however, is the ability to rise above it, to find a way of living that is so powerful, so consuming, that the suffering ceases to matter. You stop running from the pain, stop fighting it, and instead, you build something greater, something that makes the struggle worth enduring. Meaning is not found in the avoidance of pain, but in the creation of something larger than the pain itself. The ones who thrive, who rise above the torment, are the ones who look suffering in the eye and smile because they've found something more. It's not about escaping reality. It's about reshaping it, carving out a place for yourself in a world that will never bend to your will, a place where the agony no longer defines you. You don't avoid the darkness, you simply outgrow it. The suffering will always be there, lurking like a shadow at the edge of your consciousness. But when you anchor yourself in a purpose so profound, so aligned with your very existence, that suffering becomes background noise, it loses its sting. The sharp edges dull because your focus has shifted. The agony is no longer the center of your world. It's a faint echo behind the powerful roar of your purpose. This is how you avoid the madness. This is how you hold on to sanity in a world designed to tear it from you. You don't fight the suffering, you transcend it. You build something bigger than your pain, and in that process, you reshape the meaning of your life. The madness comes when people lose that vision, when they let the suffering take center stage. But those who understand, they know that life was never meant to be painless. The goal was always to find something that makes the suffering irrelevant. To not go insane, you must make the suffering irrelevant by finding your purpose and living it with everything you have. That's how you stay anchored in a world built on chaos. That's how you rise above the noise. Respect. It's not something handed to you on a silver platter. It's something you carve out with your own hands. Yet, so many wander through life without ever demanding it, even from themselves. They live as though their existence is an afterthought, as though they're passengers in a game they were never meant to play. But here's the reality. You deserve respect, not because anyone has deemed you worthy, but because your existence demands it. You are not an accident. You are a vital thread in the complex web of this world's unfolding destiny. And that alone gives you a weight, a significance that can't be ignored. People want to be treated with respect, but they forget that respect begins internally. You can't demand from the world what you haven't first demanded from yourself. It's an obligation, one you owe to your very being. You have to conduct yourself in a way that commands respect, not just from others, but from the most important person in the equation, you. Every step, every decision should be aligned with a sense of worth, with the knowledge that you are responsible not just for your survival, but for your own elevation. You must look after yourself, not as some indulgence, but as a moral imperative. Because without that self-respect, without that internal foundation, everything crumbles. But here's the twist. Everyone is flawed. Everyone is riddled with imperfections, broken edges, and scars from battles fought and lost. The world is quick to remind you of your shortcomings, quick to show you where you fall short. But those flaws don't absolve you of your responsibility. In fact, they sharpen it. To care for yourself, to respect yourself despite those flaws, that's where real strength lies. If you dismiss yourself because you are flawed, because you are imperfect, then you fall into the same pit that so many do, a pit of self-neglect, of self-destruction. And when you fall there, you drag others with you. The world itself is flawed, deeply and irreversibly. It's a brutal, punishing place where failure is inevitable. But allowing those flaws, yours or the world's, to become an excuse for self-neglect, that's the real crime. It's a vicious cycle. If every person abandoned themselves to their imperfections, the shortcomings of the world would multiply tenfold. Chaos would reign, not because chaos is inevitable, but because people would be too broken, too consumed by their own lack of self-respect to even attempt to change it. There's no progress, no forward momentum in a world where people stop valuing their own worth. Caring for yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. It's the only way to navigate through the darkness without becoming consumed by it. You have a role to play, a responsibility, not just to others, but to yourself. You can't pour from an empty vessel, and you can't demand respect from the world when you haven't first built it within. The flaws, the shortcomings, they don't negate that responsibility. They intensify it. Every failure is a reminder, not of why you should give up, but of why you need to keep going. You have to respect yourself enough to rise again and again, no matter how many times you fall short of whatever glory you once imagined. The path forward isn't in perfection. It's in embracing those flaws and understanding that respect, real respect, comes from how you handle the weight of your own humanity. It's a daily struggle, an ongoing battle with the self, and that's where the respect is earned. Not in winning every fight, but in continuing to fight. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be vital, to matter, to play a part in something larger than yourself. But that starts with how you treat yourself, with the standards you hold for your own existence. So care for yourself, elevate yourself, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. This world will punish you if you don't. And in neglecting yourself, in refusing to treat yourself with the respect you demand from others, you become part of the very chaos you seek to escape. Respect isn't just something you earn from the world. It's something you grant yourself, something that builds the foundation for every other step you take. Without it, you will be crushed by your flaws, by the flaws of others, and by the brutal, relentless nature of this world. To know your own darkness is to wield a weapon that no one else can ever use against you. Most people spend their lives running from it, pretending their shadows don't exist, masking their demons with illusions of light. But those who turn away from their darkness are the easiest to break. Their avoidance leaves them vulnerable, fragile, always on the edge of collapse when confronted with the darkness of others. But when you stare into your own abyss and refuse to flinch, something shifts. You gain an edge. You become immune to the games of others because you've already mastered the one playing inside yourself. There's a cold, brutal truth that the world avoids. Every person is filled with darkness. It's just a question of how well they've come to terms with it. Most never do. They hide from it, deny it, convince themselves that they're better, more moral, more pure than they really are. And those people, they are dangerous. They project their darkness onto others, manipulate from the shadows of their own denial. And when you don't know your own demons, you become a puppet to theirs. But if you've stared into your own, embraced what lies in the dark corners of your soul, no one can control you. No one can shock you with their malice, their greed, their fear. You've already seen it. You've already lived it. Knowing your own darkness means recognizing the parts of yourself that society tells you to suppress, the instincts that make others uncomfortable. Anger, lust, vengeance, pride. These are not sins to be banished. They are aspects of the self to be understood, harnessed, controlled. Those who deny their own darkness will always be blind to the darkness in others. They will stumble through life, always surprised when people betray them, always caught off guard by the cruelty of the world. But those who know their darkness can see clearly. They recognize the shadows in others long before they strike. They can navigate the treachery, the deception, without losing themselves. When you've faced your own darkness, the darkness in others becomes predictable. It no longer holds power over you. You can see their motivations, their fears, their insecurities, because you've dissected your own. Their manipulations fall flat because you've already played that game in your own mind, and you've won. It's only by confronting the worst parts of yourself that you become immune to the worst parts of others. Their malice is no longer a threat, just another tool you can work around, or if necessary, wield against them. Darkness recognizes darkness. When you embrace your own, you become untouchable in a way that others will never understand. They'll try to use their shadows to drag you into fear, into submission, but it won't work. Their fear, their weakness, those are your strengths. Because you've already fought that battle within yourself, and you've come out the other side stronger, sharper, more dangerous. Knowing your darkness isn't about surrendering to it. It's about mastering it, controlling it, and using it when necessary. It's about walking through life with eyes wide open, no longer blind to the darkness that runs through every interaction, every relationship, every game people play. Those who don't know their darkness are always the first to fall when confronted with someone who does. They'll try to hide, to manipulate, to play the role of the innocent. But it won't work on you. You've already stripped yourself bare, faced what lies beneath, and you're not afraid of it. In fact, you've learned to thrive in it. Their shadows are powerless when you've already made peace with your own. Their darkness is nothing more than a mirror, a weak reflection of the battle you've already won within yourself. To know your own darkness is to become invincible. It's the only way to navigate a world filled with shadows and lies. And once you've conquered your own demons, the demons of others will never stand a chance. Their darkness is just another tool in your arsenal. Because in the end, the real power lies in knowing who you are, all of you, including the parts you've been told to fear. That's the only way to rise above. That's how you keep your sanity. The most intense conflicts are the ones that burn you down to your core. They strip away everything, your illusions, your pretenses, your comforts, until there's nothing left but raw, unflinching reality. These battles are not meant for the faint-hearted. They are trials of fire, tearing at your mind and soul, daring you to crumble under their weight. But those who survive them, they emerge different, stronger, with a sense of calm that cannot be shaken. It's in that crucible of chaos where something valuable is forged, something unbreakable. The scars left behind are not wounds, they are armor. When you've endured those kinds of conflicts, you learn something about yourself that no comfort, no easy life could ever reveal. You see your limits stretched, your resolve tested, and once you've pushed through it, once you've tasted the edge of your breaking point and stepped back from the abyss, a strange clarity settles in. The world tries to shake you, but it no longer has the same grip. You've already fought the real battle, the one within, the external conflicts. They pale in comparison. The fire you walk through becomes your shield, and the calm that follows it, your weapon. These conflicts are not curses. They're necessary. Without them, there is no growth, no evolution. People want to avoid the fire, to sidestep the pain, but it's that very pain, that struggle, which gives life meaning. Without intense conflict, there is no depth, no substance. Comfort breeds stagnation, but conflict forges something real, something that lasts. It burns away the shallow parts of your existence, leaving only what's essential, what's true. The calm that comes after surviving those battles is unlike any peace comfort could ever offer. It's a hard-earned tranquility, one that cannot be easily disturbed. People who avoid conflict never know this calm. They live in a fragile world of avoidance, tiptoeing around the fire, afraid to be burned. But the ones who face it head-on, who walk through the flames without flinching, they are the ones who are truly free. They don't seek out conflict for the sake of it, but when it comes, they don't shy away. They understand its value. They know that the most valuable and lasting results are born out of the most intense struggles. The world tries to offer you peace through avoidance, through numbing, through the illusion of security. But that kind of peace is weak, fragile, easily shattered by the smallest disturbance. The real peace, the kind that lasts, only comes after the fire has burned away everything unnecessary. It's in surviving the worst that life throws at you, in standing up after the heaviest blows, that you find the kind of calm that can't be bought or given. It's earned, and in the end, that's what it's all about. Earning your place, your peace, your power. The conflicts you overcome leave behind something far more valuable than comfort ever could. They leave behind certainty. Not in the world around you, but in yourself. You've been tested, pushed to the edge, and you've survived. That knowledge, that inner calm, is what separates those who thrive from those who merely exist. Embrace the conflict. It's not your enemy. It's the only path to something real. Let it tear you apart. Let it break what needs to be broken, and then rise from the ashes with a peace that no one can take from you. Because once you've faced that kind of intensity and lived through it, nothing else comes close. You become untouchable. In the twisted maze of human existence, identity is the only anchor. Without it, you're just another wandering soul, drifting through the noise, blending into the backdrop of the social jungle. There is no real sense of being alive without it. Without that core, without that sense of who you are, the world will shape you, mold you, turn you into whatever suits its purpose. You become a ghost, a shadow passing through the lives of others, taking on the form they project onto you, without substance, without edge. Identity is the only thing that sets you apart, the only thing that gives your existence weight in this chaotic mass of faceless bodies. People will try to strip it from you, dilute it, shape it into something palatable, something they can understand, something they can control. But identity, it's not for them to decide. It's not something handed to you by society, by family, by anyone outside your own skin. It's forged from within, from every choice you make, every battle you fight, every moment you refuse to compromise. It's the core of your being, the thread that keeps you from unraveling. Lose that, and you lose everything. You become just another body, just another pawn in a game you didn't choose to play. In this jungle, the predators aren't the ones with claws and fangs. They're the ones who feed on your identity, who whisper in your ear, telling you who to be, what to want, how to live. And the weak, they listen, they bend, they break, they become whatever the world demands of them, thinking that by doing so, they'll find acceptance, find a place where they belong. But what they don't realize is that in surrendering their identity, they surrender their life. They become hollow, empty, barely alive, just walking vessels for the opinions and desires of others. Identity is not negotiable. It's not something to be bartered or compromised. In this social jungle, it's the only thing that keeps you standing, the only thing that gives you a reason to exist. Without it, you're nothing more than prey, hunted down by the expectations and demands of others, torn apart piece by piece until there's nothing left. But when you hold on to it, when you protect it, with every breath, you become something more. You become untouchable. They can't control what they don't understand, and a person who knows who they are is beyond their reach. To be alive is to be defined. To be alive is to carry that sense of self, that raw, unfiltered identity through the fire and out the other side. It's what gives your life meaning in a world that tries to strip it away. Without it, you're lost, floating through the chaos, consumed by whatever the world decides to throw at you next. But with it, you carve out your place, unshaken by the noise, undistracted by the illusions of who you're supposed to be. In this jungle, you either stand tall with your identity intact, or you become just another nameless face, swallowed by the masses. The choice is simple. Without identity, without that core, there is no life. There's just survival, just existence, just the slow decay of someone who once had the potential to be more, but gave it away for a false sense of belonging. Those who understand that, those who guard their identity like a weapon, they are the ones who truly live. The rest are already dead, they just don't know it yet. Whether we admit it or not, whether we are even aware of it, every one of us is on a relentless quest for answers. From the moment we draw breath to the last beat of our hearts, we're searching, clawing through the darkness of existence, trying to make sense of it all. Life throws its riddles at us. Fear, guilt, love, power, and we stumble through, grasping for meaning in the chaos. Some go their whole lives pretending they're not looking, as if avoiding the search will somehow shield them from the gnawing void that lies beneath. But the quest is there, burning in the subconscious, pushing us forward, whether we like it or not. Fear, that relentless shadow, stalks every step. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of death. We grapple with it, try to subdue it, but deep down we know it never truly goes away. It lurks, just waiting for the moment when we falter, when our defenses crack. And guilt, that insidious parasite, feeds off the past. It whispers of mistakes, of missed opportunities, of moments we can never undo. It's there, in the dark corners of the mind, poisoning every thought with its weight. Together, they form the barriers to our quest, the walls we must tear down if we ever hope to find what we're really looking for. Love, meaning, power. They are the false idols we chase, thinking they hold the answers. We think if we can just grasp them, just hold on to them, we'll finally have what we need. But even love fades. Even power is fleeting. And meaning, it's elusive. It slips through the cracks. It's through the cracks, always just out of reach. The more we chase, the more we realize how fragile it all is. The harder we try to control it, the more it controls us. But the quest continues. We can't stop, even when love turns to loss, even when time itself feels like an enemy, ticking away the moments we have left. We keep searching. Because to stop searching is to admit defeat. And that's something most people can't face. And then there's the quest for self. Who are we, really? Stripped of all the noise, all the distractions, all the masks we wear. What's left? Most people never truly find out. They spend their lives running from that question, hiding behind roles and responsibilities, filling their days with anything to avoid looking into the abyss. But that question never goes away. It gnaws at the edges of the mind, demanding attention. Who are you beneath the fear, beneath the guilt, beneath the desperate search for meaning?